See if anybody can see us.
All right. How about it? Do we make it back?
We are live, and I hope others can now see us. Let's give this a shot.
Got a little bit going here, a
All
little bit
right.
there.
Can we get some confirmation from the crowd? I see you on YouTube, but it is not broadcasting here either, says Julie.
Right on, right on.
All right. Now, I am showing, here we are. We are live. You should see us. We're a little delayed, but we're up.
Cool.
So let's press forward.
Very good. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll get right back to where we were here, essentially talking about the exit strategies for franchisees, right? We're excited to share a little bit more about what the next step looks like. And to do that, you need to figure out, generally speaking, what your business is worth. Jared, can you walk us through this primer of understanding what your business is worth?
Yes, and for those who had missed, Mitch had a fantastic intro about how when you're coming into a business, it's important to also know how you're going to exit your business. And that is sometimes hard for people to understand. They're thinking, hey, I'm just opening this. Why would I even consider leaving this business, right? This is new. This is fresh. I'm excited to go. Let's build this thing. Let's not talk about leaving it. But like anything, when you have a goal in mind in the future, that allows you to set reasonable expectations and checkpoints along the way to see how you're going to get there. And ultimately, we were transitioning that conversation into when you get there, right? It's all for nothing if you don't have value in your business, right? Your business isn't necessarily worth anything if you haven't operated it correctly, if you don't have profitability and you don't have a system in place in which somebody else can jump in and be able to take over and continue to grow or at least maintain into the future. So with that conversation and that thought in mind is, what is your business worth? That's where we'll start this conversation. So it comes down to your profitability. What is your cash flow, right? What can this business earn on any given time period? Right, that profitability is so important. We have our standard expenses, we have our cost of goods sold, we have our operating expenses, you have your revenue that's coming in, all of these things put together, you'll ultimately have your net income, and that net income is roughly what that profitability of the business is. In terms of selling, and when you are looking at selling, oftentimes there's different multiples associated with that, and so you may hear the term EBITDA, right? Everything before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, which takes that net profit and removes some interest and amortization, some depreciation of assets, things like that. That way you can have a value of your business that is outside of those other expenses that other owners or that next owner may not have, right? They may not need to finance, or perhaps they have their own assets or other things that could eliminate that depreciation, or at least from your books to see what that would look like if it were their business. Now, again, all those things being equal, at the bottom line, that EBITDA or your net profit, what you're looking at, you have to have some value there. If it's showing year after year of negative net income, not a good track record, right? Something that future owner does not necessarily want to see. As your revenue increases, your expenses are also going to increase, right, to some degree, but you still should have some left over at the end. Where we see the biggest issue is when owners are not accurately putting in what their discretionary expenses are, right? So a discretionary expense, for example, is something that you take out of the business that the next owner may not need to take out of the business, right? If I own an in-home care business, for example, I could purchase my car through the business and write that off as an expense. Do you have to purchase a car through the business? No. Can you use that as a depreciative asset on your books? Absolutely. Is it smart for a business owner to do that? Yes, right? Because you're going to be reducing your total net income in which you are taxed off of. However, that next person who buys your business may not associate a car into the purchase of that business. Therefore, there's a discretionary expense which had a negative effect on your profitability. However, you still had profit, right? Because you didn't have to purchase that car. Now, there's a lot of different examples of discretionary expenses or even the salary in which you take out in which that next owner may not have to take out. So it's important when looking at your business from day one, right? Where am I going to be in the future and what is my potential exit? And regardless of what that exit is, you want to make sure that you're profitable. And in order to see your true profitability, it's really important to accurately record those owner discretionary expenses. And that is going to be the best way in which you're going to be able to see an actual value of your company when those are clean. Because if in 5 years from now, a potential investor or somebody who's going to purchase your company says, yeah, I'd love to see the track record of your business, send me your last 3 years of P&L, and you're showing these negative profit margins coming in. However, you say, well, wait, no, I did make money. I took out a substantial amount of money, and I have a car that's ran through there and other expenses that I ran through the business. They're going to say, okay, well, what were they? And if you haven't tracked them, it's going to be awfully hard to remember 3 years ago what the additional Amazon expenses were that you had charged through the business that perhaps could have been personal expenses. So definitely important to know what your business is worth, but it starts with what's your profitability.
Yeah. It sounds like, what you have here is really the gateway to understanding what you can ask for a business like this. And when you think of getting to that point years from starting your business, it kind of keeps a guiding light for you as a franchisee, knowing that this will ultimately be a focus of your next step of the exit strategy, right? It kind of reminds you on a short-term basis to pay attention to it and understand how that information can be presented at the end, right? And let's talk now about that presentation, right? You shared with us a great way to identify your value, how to get other folks to evaluate those business, and now we have a sale price. Who's going to buy it, right? Who are those
Right.
folks that might make up our first exit strategy of selling that business to external owners? What does that look like?
Yeah, you bet. Well, first let's think about who could be those potential owners. There could be some external, meaning external from you, your family, or the current ownership of the business. That could come in the form of perhaps, in our case, being a franchise system, existing franchise owners, right? Who better to buy your business than other owners that are operating, who are profitable, who have done it? They've built the infrastructure. They can utilize a lot of their own resources and infrastructure to be able to just um, increase what their current operations are, take on another location, and now they've kind of maximized not only their kind of those ongoing operating expenses, but now they've brought on a whole nother location. So they take their knowledge, they take the people and all of what they have learned, and now they're just duplicating that into other areas. So existing franchisees would be a great source of selling your business. New franchisee, right? Perhaps somebody who is not a current owner within a system, somebody who, they see the value in a franchise system because of the back end support, the marketing, the branding, the name recognition, as well as a successful location that is profitable and already has an infrastructure. It's like the best of both worlds. So it's really attractive to people who are on the outside saying, you know what, I want to invest in a business, and this is why I'd want to invest in a franchise business, right? So that is another great way in which we can help any one of our owners who is looking to sell. And even Mitch, I know we had a little bit of a slow start here, but I do want to just rewind and hit on one key thing you had mentioned in our first go, which is usually we're looking at a 10-year term in a franchise agreement, and other franchise agreements have other terms. But when we're looking at selling, right, perhaps somebody's goal is to say, you know what, I'm going to operate this business through those 10 years, then I'm going to sell it. Perhaps their goal is to sell it in the next 5 years to, a qualified buyer and go and relax and retire on the beach somewhere. But whatever those selling factors are, our goal in our franchise system would be to help them through a resale. And this is some of that external selling that I was describing is a resale potential to existing franchisees or to someone who is not a franchisee who would become a new franchisee. And the third one in selling external from family or current ownership would be a corporate or a franchisor purchasing that location from the franchisee. Many large franchisors out there have the goal of eventually buying back those locations and bringing them internal and bringing it corporate. You see that a lot of times through private equity or different M&A organizations who are going to want to kind of consolidate the ownerships, buy back some really successful locations to help their bottom line. So again,
Yeah.
external selling is definitely a way in which you could exit that business.
Yeah.
Also, we can
And
look at, yeah, go ahead, Vince.
it's a great thing to think of bringing folks into the business, but oftentimes franchisees are excited about creating wealth for their families. And in some cases, right, you can develop your second exit strategy, which is essentially bringing your children into the business, right? A lot of
Yeah.
families grow up in a franchise ownership, right? And this strategy is all about essentially making sure that your children who show interest in business ownership are essentially seeing management positions and training that prepares them to eventually take over your business, the franchisee who developed this. And we kind of think of this as more of a selling the business internally, right? Where someone has essentially, in your own family, chosen to rise the ranks and really essentially become a qualified owner, but they're very close to you. And that's what you get. That's how this turns into family business. Literally, it is. And that could be an option for you of setting something up so that your children may one day run it, right? And what better way to develop generational wealth than working with the next generation of business owners that you are able to essentially put into your business. And I love that as a second strategy. But sometimes an exit strategy doesn't necessarily sound like an exit as the point of like we're going to leave franchising altogether, but it can strengthen the idea of separating yourself from a previous role. Right. Oftentimes, our model here is focused on owner-operator single units. But if you were to change that position, you might have exited from your previous role. And so we kind of think of this third exit strategy, replacing what you were doing before, as expansion. Right? Can you talk to us a little bit about that, about passive ownership and things that might essentially replace what you were doing before as a single unit franchisee?
Right. Yep. So, we talked about selling. We talked about an internal selling or a legacy, right? Leaving a legacy, which we hear people all the time. I want to leave a legacy. And the third, which we're now talking about, is the exit of not exiting it at all, right? You had your essentially your job functions, you had your career, you had your business, you had your role in which you were executing, growing, and developing your business, but now you may change hats, perhaps through expansion. Maybe you want to own another location in which now you become more of like a general manager. That single unit role that you had, right now you are bringing on a new role, right, of starting and growing a new location. So that's definitely a way in which you can expand. Now, this doesn't have to be within a 10-year term. When you reach a point of growth in your current location, you feel comfortable with the procedures, you feel comfortable with the current office staff that you have and the leadership team that you have in place, including your role in that leadership team and taking that business to another level. It allows you, when you get to this point of being able to work on your business, not just in your business, to look at expanding through multiple different junctures, right? It could be, again, just simply bringing on multiple different locations. Perhaps it is diversification, right? Maybe you want to diversify instead of just in-home care. You want to bring on home health or a DME company or perhaps a transportation entity. Maybe it's something outside of this industry altogether, right? You've been wanting and have loved the food industry for so long that you want to start a food franchise of whatever nature. So it's important, for business owners and especially, more of those enterprise level thinkers to diversify their portfolio, not only in stocks, but also in the businesses they may own and manage and grow. And so very much your exit strategy could be exiting that current role of you being that owner operator and now being an overseer and diversifying into something else, but not necessarily giving up all that ownership or any ownership at all in that business. So maybe it's just an exiting of your attention going somewhere else while still keeping some attention on that business. But there's one other piece there, right? There could be a potential partner, right? Perhaps it is an employee that's worked their ranks within your business. Maybe it's somebody who is a manager in your business, or perhaps an outside investor who has noticed your business and they want to be a part of it, right? So maybe you're looking for that other operating partner to come in and to be an overseer, as you can then turn your attention towards, again, either another location, another industry, another business altogether. So diversification, right, whether again through multi-unit or through other business entities, could definitely be a way to exit your current role and take on some an entirely different role. So yeah, that would be the third way.
And there it is. We've talked about today, 3 ends in mind, right? Ways to develop strong, profitable business and take that next step, right? After having really spent several years building your business, focusing on the profitability, getting an evaluation done, you can find ways to sell this externally to current franchisees, new franchisees, or buy back through corporate. Should that be the strategy? You'll look internally and leave a legacy with your own family members excited about business ownership and taking over the family business for years to come. Or we can just double down, right? We can exit the single unit ownership model and get into a multi-unit diversified portfolio. So there's a lot of opportunity. Once an exciting moment of starting a franchise begins, it's just more exciting after that. So many more options become available to franchisees. And I appreciate, Jared, your time sharing that with us here, working through, a bunch of our live stream things happening here. We're excited to continue to share information like this for valuable nuggets for all of our, franchise listeners and viewers on LinkedIn Live here. So we're excited to continue this. So Jared, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, Mitch. And thanks for rolling with the punches, everybody out there watching here over these first few minutes. We definitely had some technical difficulties, but we're able to jump in, give you more an expedited approach to this conversation. But the conversation doesn't have to stop here. Please reach out, message us directly should you want to know more about exit strategy, or perhaps the entry strategy, in which thus we'll have an exit strategy through a place at home or other business ownership. Love to connect with you all and answer any other questions that you may have. Thanks again for watching. Thank you, Mitch, for hosting, and y'all have a great day.
Thanks.